This insane journey is made possible thanks to Rocket Money. Finishing these intake pieces, we've realized you can't keep building an intake without knowing more about Legos. You're seeing the result of this video of getting the exhaust going, because the exhaust is all part of it. It's all the circle of life, the suck, bang, blow, whatever the four strokes are, they're all related. And in this case, we got a cool little way of visualizing all of that. We're gonna take a little journey down the exhaust world to get all of the heat and byproduct out of the engine, so that way we now know where to build the rest of the intake. Get ready. Oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Is it gonna be exhausting?
There's gonna be a lot to intake. What we're gonna do first is deal with the biggest challenge of the way this is designed. This trough, the Star Wars trench, we have to get super hot exhaust out of here and fuel safely in here side by side. These are very fascinating, unique exhaust ports. They're a little different from these center ones to these over here. And I don't know how much of an effect that will have, but we will be monitoring that. Regardless, we'll be designing so they try to flow everything the exact same, and it is time to start cutting. Let's go take a look at what the material looks like now. This is the cleanest this CNC machine has looked since I've owned it. I did proper maintenance to it. The coolant looks like shit, so ignore that. It's still gonna cut nice and fine. This is one of our 4-rotor exhaust manifold blanks. That is 304 stainless steel. It is heavy as hell. We are not going to be cutting this in all one piece. We're gonna be cutting it in little diamond-shaped flanges. But with how rough that is, I'm gonna go ahead and take a layer off, so that way we can have it flat to the table and not chatter. Stainless steel requires minimal vibration. I am going to be using my big cutter. This thing can make some really smooth, flat surfaces. And look at how warped that piece is. That's 20 thousandths, in my opinion. That's enough to get that flat mated surface, because this is lower. What I want these corners and the center supported on the table. 180 it and hope that we kind of match this energy right here. There you go. Look at how warped that piece was. And it started in somewhere there. We're doing 2 operations. Let's see how flat it is to the table. You can tell it's warped, right? Like, that's pretty easy. Did you do that?
Try and level it.
Look at that.
Nice.
So much more solid to the table, so when it cuts, it cuts. We are now going to make our very first exhaust flange area. So you're gonna see me clean off this area, maybe even have to clean it off twice, and then you're gonna start seeing it just dig.
Oh, nice.
He was just asking what happens when a tool snaps. Let me show you. It had 2 chipped teeth, and so you can actually see 2 other ones were getting really hot, gummed up, and then it just snapped. There's the first one. Second one's coming up next. These are gonna get flipped and held onto right there. Then we'll take all the rest of this material off of it. This is beyond overwhelming. And one of my favorite things with the way the world works nowadays is having subscription services all taking care of me. But there's the dark side, which is those subscriptions often run over. You're busy working on 12 different rotors at once, and life goes on. And so I had the opportunity to work with Rocket Money, and I was skeptical. I'm pretty good with money. I was wrong. So I downloaded Rocket Money, I signed up, and sure enough, for the last 10 months, my Peloton was actually double charging me on accident. It was a fluke in their billing system. No harm, no foul, but I didn't pick up on it because it was every 15 days. So when I would look at it, it just wouldn't show up the same on my bank statement. I signed in, and it's like, hey, here's some of your subscription services that might have some issue. And sure enough, Rocket Money showed me it's now doubled. Is this supposed to be that way? I was able to call, get that handled, but I didn't even know there was a problem. They handled that for me. Nowadays, everything is subscriptions, and there's a great benefit to that, but of course, they're all hoping that you forget about it. Well, you might forget about it, but Rocket Money doesn't. It's not overwhelming and overloading. It gets the information you need. So if you're ready to take control of your finances, go to rocketmoney.com/RobDahm to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/RobDahm. I just went and cut my soft jaws, which is just another fancy word for aluminum that you're gonna waste. And so the idea is like that. I'm just gonna cut as if it's a big rectangle. Extra strength because there's gonna be a lot of force on this metal right here. This should only take 20 minutes. All of that nasty work just to have an internal exhaust sleeve built into this. That's dedication. The roughing phase, but that thing put in some serious work. That looks like the part now, right? We can actually take it out because it's centered based on the clamp's location, not the part. We did all that without taking out the middle, so the middle kept that structural rigidity. Does look good. I don't want to test it out here. I want to test it where I was designing it for space. And that should fit. Ooh,
Nice.
that is incredible. Lined up with that, and it lines up right at the edge of this radius. My goal is not to have this sit flat on here. It's to have this here. And this encapsulate a little bit. Now we haven't machined that in yet. And so it sits on top of it, but it'll go split that difference right there. There we go. To really help Isaiah get this as tight as possible, I can machine this down, get this lip further back, so that way he could cheat trying to get that radius as low as possible. I want to make sure from the moment these two meet and touch, I want to have a nice solid seal for boost. I mean for exhaust.
So we're gonna head out. You're gonna knock out two more.
Yep, it's midnight. The guys are gonna take off for now. I'm actually taking off for PRI in the morning, but I'm gonna knock off I'm gonna jack off, knock up the last two of these, so that way the guys can bolt them in and then start tacking in tube, and hopefully have the beginning of a 12 rotor manifold.
We're fucking shit up. Woo! So Rob is currently in PRI, and he has assigned me to cut 8 more of those exhaust flanges. So we're fucking shit up.
My pieces have multiplied. Ethan took on the daunting task of machining stainless steel while I was gone. You can see there's a little variation here and there on the motor. Like look at that angle versus this angle. That's the motor, not my stuff. These lips allow us to start deeper in with the tube and get some sort of twisty, twirly thing. The reason we're doing all this extra work, we got the injectors on the far side of this. We know that we're gonna have to go up and over. We need to get this as tight and as thin as possible through here. 4 of these have to be passing through this area. I think we can keep it pretty low. These are easy because rest of the exhaust can sit low. We have a lot of flexibility on the exhaust coming out of the sides. It's this center area that is our biggest challenge. I went and took it up a notch. The hydraulic holder is insanely accurate. It's also way more expensive. Basically minimum $300 for all of this, minus your tool. And so this holds the tool even more solidly. And so when it comes to stainless, that becomes a very big thing. Something that was dooming Ethan is that runout is, how much it wobbles, overly simplify it. This is a 1/2 inch exactly, 0.5000. This tool on this holder registers at 0.501, half the thou of wobble. I looked at Ethan's code on the tools that he put in, and not to his fault, but using this sort of style, it was 0.508. That means on one side it's taking an extra 8 thousandths off of 0. It's going like 8 thousandths in, and the other side isn't even touching. So you're breaking that tooth because it's obviously doing way more load than the other side. You'll see that in the finish of the tool. So this should give us even more life. Ethan's not alone anymore. We're gonna get the rest of these done. If I had to define this moment, I would use one word, and that would be, all right. No, this engine will break your soul, because making 12 of these and then get them to fit is not that small of an undertaking. And so he went and got the nice studs. You can see that they're all done by hand, not from us, but from before. So they're all slightly off, but still very, very, very solid. So look at that. Ethan did all the hard work, and I get to do the setting these on the holes and making it look pretty cool. All 12, every single one of these has to work right. Any exhaust coming out of any one of those is a failure on our end. All of this allows us now to begin manufacturing the whole header assembly. And these sides don't matter. I don't care yet. I care about this trough right there, and you can see our goalposts look something like that. Just gotta start making the exhaust. This is moving so quickly right now, as you saw in the previous video. We have tons to improve on. And so we've got these two, which are actually even more clean versions of that, a little shorter, to try and get this engine as short as possible. That brings us to the next couple challenges. We've put the fuel rails on the outside, so that way we can have our tube coming out of here at a more aggressive angle. So these are all intake ports, and of course they have to go to a throttle. They have to get air to them. The lower we can get that tube, the more we start curving it with the fuel rails out of the way, then the lower we can get the whole tank. So you can see injectors are on the outsides here, injectors are on the outsides here, injectors are on this side here. So these tubes can kind of come up and hopefully go to the middle of the three. So right now our limitation is, where's this exhaust going? We've got the exhaust flanges all made, but we need something to mock this up, and we need to be able to remock it up, and I've been wanting this for a long time, so I bought a 4-cylinder kit. It's like $1 million. These things are stupidly expensive, $700 bucks.
Jeez.
They must get their pricing from Legos, because you know Legos are so expensive. But at least for this exact situation, it's necessary to do this. This is their 2-inch header kit. Now, if you're saying, well, why don't you just start mocking up with tubes? That's not the point. The point of this isn't to make the exhaust manifold. The point of this is to figure out what we can do to get the best intake manifold. So this is kind of a secondary goal. Normally when you're building a header, you're like, okay, we'll just make it fit in this area and fit around this. This lets us go, wait, maybe we shift it all over here. Oh, you know what? No, that doesn't work. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It'll click together, I'm assuming. These are the straight pieces, and then they would just go in like that. Our piece is designed correctly. I ordered the right kit. They even have this, which is what excited me the most. The rubber baby buggy bumper can go into.
I like that.
Yeah, you like that? Almost dropped it. Right? And then you would then have the header piece.
Fell through.
Oh, shit.
Nice.
Wow.
That was smart.
Okay, well, thankfully, no pause. We're doing this live. Good and bad thing that this has such a massive exhaust ports. The goal is not to drop them to begin with, when I Googled it. Okay, so we will do that out of the motor. We'll go like that. And then now, look at that. Within reason, it holds it. So all of these are straight pieces. And then here's my type. They start going into radius piece. And so it even tells you 2-inch OD, 4-inch center line radius, meaning that the center line radius is 4 inches from the center line. So these are the ones we're going to use the most, these really tight ones to get over and so on. As you can see already, just for illustration, putting these on there makes this massive tall height. So you know that that's the wrong way to do it. On these middle ones though, we're actually going to take most of this bag. Now these two other bags are sadly not as useful for us, but they might be. These are not as aggressive. So this is 4-inch, this is 6-inch. So we're not gonna be mixing them up unless it's like a section and we want to go tight and loose. It's 4, 5, and 6 inch radius. So the idea here is that we know that this one can just come up and out. The traffic jam is going to be somewhere in here. This one, not so much. What I have done is put all 4 of these nice and snug on there, and my flanges themselves can come off. But you'll notice that this little triangle there is not in line with this piece. That is the curve, that is the outside of the radius. So I'm radiusing it this way. And when you put it on here, you'll see why. Our number 1 goal with these is to get them out here. Number 2 goal that has now shown itself, and this makes this kit already worth it, is these are on an angle like that. So we can try and fight that by twisting this so the curve comes out this way. But we also don't need all of this material here. This was built over the top on these on purpose. And of course we want to keep it as far away from the header. Let's take a couple more of these radius pieces and see. I have no idea what this is going to look like. To keep it simple, you can tell I'm putting them all on there, because that means that I can cut a piece of metal that long instead of making shitty pie cut stuff. If we go ahead and put this back to where I had originally set it, you can see now the biggest concern is actually the tube that's coming off of this hole right here. Yeah, we maybe clear it, but now we've got heat right there. With this one rotating, we now know this next one can't be there either. I'm gonna go ahead and build all 4 of these first sandworm weird looking shapes. First of all, it shows you how empty this area is gonna be, because this tube doesn't even start until right there. Rotate this whole assembly like that. I'm making sure I don't rotate any of them separately, so I'm keeping all those triangles in line. This is what I was concerned about. We will have a heat shield over here, and definitely one over here as well. That's actually not as tall as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
We are now thinking about these 2 coming out here, and seeing this up this high means that this one at least has to go over that high, and this one would have to get over here. So we're looking at potentially this, which is altogether not a bad.
Better than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, better than we thought it was going to be. And that gives us, say, a throttle body height of here, the bottom of the thing, you know, heat shielding, all that. That means that these runners would be that long, which means we need to have all these runners be that long. I don't know if I can get it much lower, but there's a couple things that need to be optimized. One is that this area of space is just wasted. What the fuck? I think I've grabbed the, oh my God, I think I grabbed the wrong bag.
No.
These are the smaller ones. Okay, well, we do have tighter radiuses. I was like, man, that, we were both like,
yeah,
that's, I guess 4 is it. It makes a huge difference. So it also gets further away from that. And then we could already, on this one, be turning. We actually could use taller radiuses here. I had a lot of fun last night doing exactly what I said earlier, and here's what we've got. This is version 1, and it is coming together quite nicely. So what you see here is basically getting all 4 out this way. Now, I had this one a little bit taller to give you the diamond shape, and it accomplishes that, but I brought it down lower just to really see. Imagine that those are the intake tubes, which are already much larger. Not only did I get the bends up, but I got them away from these sooner. So you actually see me rotate out instead of just going this way. So all these got rotated more out, so we have more air, more space for insulation. And this one, of course, comes nice and clean, and then also on this side has the same amount of space. So that was kind of my working limitations there, is the radiant heat. Now this one's gonna be much hotter. You're gonna see the heat on this area, and so on. And so that was my goal, was to say, okay, this long runner is the one that goes across all of these, because it's gonna be the coldest runner by this point. And that's relative, but it is the coldest runner. If I had this one going to here, it would be much hotter radiating. This is the bare minimum to get this out this way. That's the shortest, cleanest, smoothest path. The less the airflow has to rotate and change, the less that it'll stay in the runner. And I don't know how much that affects it, but it's pretty obvious. You can actually see smoother bends, wider radiuses, all that. Second one, same thing. Third one, I actually go with the tighter radius, so there's gonna be a little bit more heat building up here, but it keeps it underneath these two and gets it right out to here. Right now I have it resting against this because there's not much else it can rest against, but bringing this back up higher allows me to shift this one this way because it's more of a diamond shape and life is good. So you just can see that some of the limitation of just the kit. For example, each of these are 15 degrees, but you could cut a 92 degree angle or say a 84 degree angle. You don't need exactly 60, 30, and so on. So this is just to get the idea of this spacing. Now I'm really, really happy with how high this is. And in fact, that's lower than we can even make it because the smallest radius that Vibrant makes, and it is very, very tight, is 3 inches. For an 1.5 inch pipe, it's 2 1/4. This is 3 inches, so it's gonna be even smaller than this. But the point still stands that it's gonna have plenty of space here, but we'll have tons of insulation because of the heat radiating upward. And now we run into the issue of getting these runners the equal length. I already did the math. Center to center, this is 15 inches. This, on a 2.5 inch radius, you end up with about 3.5 inches of travel to get it up and over. And it actually ends up being smaller and looks kind of like that. This is 6 inches up. These are 3.5 inches over. We need to go over another 2 inches. It creates this like log style intake plenum, which is not, I think, big enough. I'd rather have a bigger log, but it's gonna be very effective and very low. The other thing I think we're gonna do to help with heat here is, say even the manifold does come to here, I'm actually going to turn the throttle bodies up on an angle. Rotating them upward on an angle does a couple things. One is that we'll find the right angle to get the general correct amount of air to all of them. And two, it rotates the connectors, the plastic, the bodies, the motors that are inside the electronic throttle bodies away from the heat. An intake manifold will be kind of between it. And that gives us the ability to bring the inlets up and down and over and all that sort of stuff for whatever adventures we have. The final thing is that I think for now, as much as I love having equal length headers and it makes a big difference, to do all the swooping and stuff like that, that could be like version 2. It's so many things going on at once. I think for the sake of time and testing, we just make the exhaust this length and see what this engine does. We have so many bigger problems to deal with, but there you go. You can see all 4 of these coming together. 4-inch radius. This is 3. You can barely tell the difference. They'll end up being 3s. That is version 1 of my plans. So we're gonna test and use all of this to make the dream intake.